December 11, 1981. El Mozote, a tiny village in El Salvador, wakes to an ominous silence. Families go about their meager morning tasks, unaware that men wearing American boots and badges have just swept into their homes. Within hours, this quiet place will become a nightmarish symbol of Cold War brutality. How did this happen, and why did so many turn a blind eye? Let's unravel the horrifying truth buried beneath the propaganda. Before the massacre, El Mozote seemed like a peaceful backwater, until that December morning shattered any illusion of safety. Mark Danner recounts how El Mozote was a close-knit community of about 300 residents. Children played by dirt roads, women prepared tortillas, men tended modest farms. The villagers had no weapons, no militia. They welcomed news of peace talks, only to be violently betrayed by soldiers they thought were protectors. The Atlacatl Battalion, trained by U.S. military advisors, swept into El Mozote with a chilling method: systematic murder. Men were rounded up, then slaughtered, some beheaded, and women and children weren't spared. The cold, calculated cruelty was like a machine grinding human lives into dust, all in the name of anti-communism. Despite early press reports and haunting photographs surfacing in U.S. newspapers, the Reagan administration dismissed the massacre as communist lies. The world, distracted by its Cold War chess game, let the story die. This collective silence is a lesson on how power manipulates truth and how easily evidence can be erased. El Mozote wasn't just a massacre. It was a Cold War tragedy that exposes the darker side of global politics and ideology. The El Mozote massacre happened in the context of U.S. efforts to stop communist influence in Central America. The Salvadoran government's army, backed with millions of American dollars in covert training, was encouraged to crush insurgents, no matter the cost. This foreign policy, wrapped in slogans of freedom, disguised the reality of sponsoring atrocities. Reports from journalists and survivors clashed with official denials. The media became a battleground: skeptical editors, government statements, hidden evidence. It was like watching a play where truth fights to be heard over the noise of propaganda and political expediency. This distortion delayed justice and deepened wounds. Decades later, survivors and journalists like Mark Danner have forced the story back into view. The massacre's victims, once anonymous shadows, re-emerge as symbols of accountability and human rights. This transformation reminds us, history buried by lies can still rise, demanding remembrance and lessons for our future. Mark Danner's investigation isn't just history, it's a call to remember and reckon with past horrors we'd rather forget. In 1993, years after the massacre, Mark Danner published his groundbreaking report in The New Yorker. His vivid, painstaking reconstruction rattled U.S. officials, exposing not just a massacre but a cover-up. His work was a beacon illuminating hidden crimes long ignored by powerful governments. Survivors like Rigoberto, who hid under corpses to live, told their stories to Danner. Their testimonies pierced through decades of silence, turning faceless statistics into raw human suffering that no propaganda could erase. This personal courage transformed history into urgent moral reckoning. While full justice remains elusive, exposing El Mozote's truth challenged impunity and inspired international human rights efforts. The story shows how investigative journalism and survivor voices can crack the coldest walls of denial, offering imperfect but powerful paths toward justice and remembrance. Back in El Mozote's dawn silence, the horror now feels unbearable, but that silence was broken by one man's pen, hundreds of survivor voices, and countless forgotten cries. The massacre reminds us how easily truth is buried and how fiercely it fights to surface. Try this next time you hear a too shocking to be true story. Lean in. History's darkest moments demand your curiosity. Subscribe for more book summaries like this one.